Hey, good morning. Scott Luton, Greg White, and Kevin L. Jackson here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Gregory, Kevin, how we doing?
No. Good morning. Good morning. Snow, ice in the teens last night. I am so happy I work from home.
I tell you, it does have its advantages, right, Greg? Uh-oh.
Guys, I got you guys sound like one of the monsters from Ghostbusters on my mic, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Well, that's a call from our tech team, I bet, to figure that out, Greg. Right on time. How are you doing this morning?
I might let me try and get back in here.
Okay. All right. Hey, Kevin.
No, love technology when it works.
I wish I could record it. It's very cool sounding, I gotta say.
Hey, live streams, Murphy's Law is alive and well, certainly, as we all are looking to overcome our technical challenges. We'll give Greg a few minutes to join back in there. Kevin, how was your weekend?
Hey, it was very very good actually. Kind of quiet. I took some downtime, and after the holidays, you gotta sit down and recover from the family, so to speak. But
Yes, I agree. Well, hey, today, I think we got Greg.
Some good games to look at, though.
Agreed. Well, yes. In fact, the Cowboys and Niners are all the rage this Monday morning. Greg, you got us now?
Yeah, that was like watching Ghostbusters. I mean, it sounded like either one of those monsters talking or it was like the devil was talking to me. At first, Scott, I thought you were messing with your microphone. And then Kevin spoke and I heard it and I went, oh, it's me.
Well, I've been known to mess with people a couple of times, but
all that means is all that checking and testing we do before we go live is worthless.
That's right.
That's right. It's true. I mean, anything can happen. It's the internet.
Well, you joined us right back, right in time as Kevin was talking about the NFL games over the weekend. So before we kind of move on and talk about the buzz and all the things we're going to chat through today, Greg, I'm going to give you one quick take on the football games over the weekend.
Remember this trivia point. Who was the last NFL player to sack Ben Roethlisberger? Mike Dana.
With the Chiefs.
Yeah, like a second string defensive tackle for us.
Okay. I'm going to win.
He got himself into the record books by doing that. How about that?
Well, lots of great games. Love the playoffs. And, of course, the Chiefs look strong, getting ready to maybe make another Super Bowl push. But, folks, today it's about the Super Bowl of supply chain, right? The supply chain buzz. Digital Transformers edition, which is really important. Kevin L. Jackson joins us the third Monday of each month. Of course, Digital Transformers is the podcast that knows no bounds, taking no prisoners. It's been very popular. Enjoyed the work there, Kevin. But hey, on today's buzz, we dive into some of the leading news of the day. Again, every Monday at 12 noon. We're gonna probably focus a little bit more on technology here today, which I always learn a lot between Greg and Kevin right there. But buckle up and get ready because we want to hear from you too. Now, we're going to say hello to a few folks. We've got a bunch of folks chiming in, including Kelly Barner, the birthday girl. Kelly Barner is with us here today.
Kelly.
Happy 25th.
Happy birthday. That's right. Happy 25th.
How many 25ths is that? No.
Well, Kelly, big
Second
friend of the show.
anniversary of her 25th birthday.
Big friend of the show, great personal friend, professional colleague, and we're actually going to be talking about one of her most recent collaborations towards the end of the buzz. But hey, before we get started, speaking of birthdays and what we recognize on the third Monday of every year, it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in the U.S., third Monday of January each year, where we pause to reflect on the incredible extraordinary legacy of an exceptional human being. And that's where I want to start here today. Greg and Kevin, there's so much, gosh, here in recent months, as we've touched on his journey and other podcasts, there's so much. But Kevin and Greg, what comes to mind as you reflect on the one and only Martin Luther King Jr.? Kevin?
Well, actually, I really he really changed he changed everyone's world, to be honest. But I was in the choir. I was like 11 years old when he got assassinated, right? And I was at a children's choir rehearsal at St. Stephen's Church in Neptune, New Jersey, and the streets just erupted. And I didn't really know what was happening. And I couldn't get home because of all the chaos that was going on in the streets. And my pastor took us to his house so that we can be safe. And later my parents came to retrieve me. But that was my first realization of how the broader world can deeply affect one's personal life, right? News didn't mean much to me as an 11-year-old, but from that point on, what was happening to others was important to me. And the next time I ever felt anything like that was 9/11, so his life really points out the fact that you as an individual can change the world. So, so step up to the challenge and be important, be consequential to the rest of the world as you lead your life.
Kevin, I couldn't imagine a better way to kick off the buzz here today. Thank you so much for sharing. Greg?
Well, it's a little bit different for me because it was a history lesson for me. I was 2 years old when Dr. King was killed, and I learned about it from my parents and grandparents and in school. And I probably, Kevin, like you did, you learned about what he was doing in school as well, but it was a little bit different for me because I had to reflect back on it. And in fact, doing some studying over the weekend, I don't know that everybody knows this, but his name was actually Michael King Day. And in 1934, his father went to Germany to study Martin Luther, the original former of Protestantism, and was so influenced, so inspired by that he changed his name, Martin Luther King Sr., changed his name to that, and subsequently his son. And and I think about some of the famous words of Martin Luther, right? Here I stand, I can do no other. Basically, these are the principles that I stand on. I can do nothing else but stand on these principles and protect and guide and reflect them. And I just remember that statement so clearly and think about how, at least what I learned of him, and of course everyone knows now, that was the way that he was, right? It was about not fighting. You almost don't want to say the word fighting when you think of Martin Luther King, because it was resisting, right? It was aggressively resisting and outwardly and openly and peacefully resisting oppression. And I think that, that whole sort of circle from all the way from his father changing his name, from Martin Luther, obviously, but from his father changing his name, they were protesters from the beginning, and they protested injustice, and they did so in a way that was so effective to change people's minds and hearts and policies and things like that. And that little story, kind of brought it full circle for me as to why Dr. King thought the way that he did. They were so philosophically influenced by, the goodness of someone who invented an entirely new way to be individually expressive. So,
well, you think about the men of peace, Gandhi, and we recently lost Bishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa in December 26th, day after Christmas, and then Martin Luther King, and how these men of peace have really changed the entire world.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So really quick, and I'd love to keep it here all day. I think both of y'all, there's so much to talk about this one family's, but one man's journey and the impact he had. But this image here, I came across it over the weekend, and we see so many of the same wonderful, iconic images of Martin Luther King Jr. This was new to me, and this really captured a special moment with his family. This was taken, I think, May 1956, and this was in Montgomery. He was in his mid-20s. He begrudgingly and surprisingly had around this time had been voted president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. And a big reason for that is others were fearful of the retribution from the community. But he took it on in the mid-20s. Imagine doing what he's doing starting in the mid-20s. So special man, special family that also sacrificed, incredible historical impact. And one day is never enough. But I think the challenge that we all have is to reflect and act on the legacy year round of Martin Luther King Jr. and his family. So thanks so much, Kevin and Greg, for sharing y'all's thoughts here today. And there's so much more, as we all know, to that story. Okay. On a much lighter note, it feels crazy going from Martin Luther King Jr. to global supply chain.
Anything.
To anything, really. That's right.
Yeah.
But hey, that is what we do here. And we welcome, we want to make this conversation. We welcome all of y'all's thoughts that are in the cheap seats, the skyboxes, as it were. We're going to say hello to a few folks here in just a minute. But we want to offer up lots of learning opportunities, starting with tomorrow's webinar with our dear friend, Jeremy Bodenhammer, talking about survival when it comes to warehouse automation, your survival guide to modern warehouse automation, adapt or die. So check that out tomorrow at 12 noon. We've got Infor with a live stream this coming Wednesday at 12 noon, talking about what's worse, bad news about your supply chain or uncertainty about your supply chain. Corinne Bursa will be joining me for that.
That's a tough call, isn't it?
That is a tough
really.
call, isn't it,
Yeah.
Greg? And we're going to be out in Vegas. We invite you to join us in early February as we're out with the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo. I think it's their 18th straight annual conference. So we look forward to continuing investing in the coverage of returns management and reverse logistics, which we've been doing for a couple of years now. And then finally, folks, nominations are open for the 2022 Supply Chain and Procurement Awards. It's a global affair this year, right? We're celebrating global successes across industry on May 18th, 2022. But hey, nominations close on March 1st. So you got about 45 days to nominate individuals or companies across 8 different categories. And we're really proud, Greg and Kevin, to be baking in a ton of purpose into this awards program, where we're supporting Hope for Justice, a nonprofit dedicated to eradicating modern slavery and human trafficking, which it is a travesty. Those are travesties in and of themselves, but it's a travesty that we have to utter those words in 2022 for sure. Links to all those events are in the comments. And Kevin and Greg, no shortage of things taking place across global business here in January of the new year. Is that right, Greg?
Agreed. And a ton of recognitions. I mean, this is kind of the month where people reflect back on the previous year and look forward to the rest of the current year. And we're seeing a lot of that. And I think we're starting to see some realization. Some of the things, Scott, we have been talking about, and we've been talking about since the pandemic started, and Kevin's been talking about for nigh on a decade, right? Get your technological house in order, get your processes in order, right? Build your house on stone, not on shifting sand, kind of thing. And I think we're starting to hear more about that and starting to see more companies move that direction.
Agreed. I'm just going to follow in Kevin's footsteps and trust the path. Kevin, your response to that?
Well, the thing about it is that, people respond to adversity. Society responds to adversity. And the past 2 years have been really a learning opportunity for our entire society. I've said this before, but it's the first time that the entire population of the world experienced the same calamity at the same time and could actually talk about it in real time. I was looking at this show last night. It was 4 billion people on Earth were locked in to their homes over the past year, right? That's half of the population of the entire globe. That's amazing.
It is. And it's amazing that technology and infrastructure has got to keep up with making sure we can maintain connectivity amongst all those folks. I'll tell you, I don't know about y'all, but I had to kick off 3 kids off the internet prior to going live here today because they're home with the holiday, and they were none too pleased about that. But anyway, well, let's say hello to a few folks. There's so much to talk about here today. I think we've got 4 stories teed up that we've been working our way through. And folks, we want to hear from you. We got Jason T. Hopkins with us. I think he's in DC, big Bama fan there. Max Gomez is back via LinkedIn. Great to see you, Max. Marwin says, good evening from the other side. Greg and Kevin, any guesses?
Ooh.
You don't think, I'm hoping that's geographically and not.
You never know.
From the sound of your microphones, it could be.
Maybe he is a Ghostbuster.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe we do need a Ghostbuster.
Better look out.
And is with us via LinkedIn. Great to see you. And this morning, Simon is back via LinkedIn. Simon, hope this finds you and your wonderful sense of humor well. Stephen is tuned in with us here today. Keshup is here. Let's see here. Studying Masters in Supply Chain in Ireland. He is new. Any suggestions for looking for jobs in supply chain? Hey, Keshup, great question. Folks in the comments, hey, drop in jobs, drop in advice, places, resources, you name it, as we try to help Keshup, who's getting through. It looks like a great program there. Eric.
Yeah. Just
go ahead.
Open your ears because they are out there. We were 2 million professionals short prior to the pandemic. And there are far more supply chain jobs out there now. So
that is right.
You'll find,
excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Eric asked, and Eric, good morning. Where I think he's saying is my UGA gear. Well, I'm very. Congrats to all of my Georgia Bulldog friends. It's been really cool living here on the fringe of the Eastern Metro Atlanta area, seeing the Bulldogs, celebrate a national championship. Really is cool. But I'm a big Clemson fan, as this poster right here, just over my right shoulder, might seem to indicate. But Eric, hope this finds you well this morning. David's tuned in via LinkedIn from the UK. Max is talking Chiefs. Let's see here. Mahomes versus the Allen showdown is going to be a great game. Hope one of those two or Burrow win the Super Bowl. Greg, your quick take.
It's going to be a tough fight. The Bills stomped our guts out earlier in the season. It was not pretty, but Patrick Mahomes has to be looking at Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and going, am I the future greatest quarterback of the NFL or are they? I mean, I really think he thinks that way. And he's got to know in his heart of hearts that he is, and he's got the team around him to win. And I'm hopeful that they step up. But I mean, I fear the Bills like no other.
Wow.
I think the Super Bowl, coming out of the AFC, I think the Super Bowl will be an incredible game. But these AFC teams are going to beat the heck out of one another getting there.
All right. So speaking of football, really quick, Kevin, because you're a big fan of the Washington football team. It's about to roll out a new nickname. What's your favorite one of the ones they're considering?
Well, yeah, I actually wanted the Red Tails, but they didn't make the short list. It's like the Armada, the Presidents, the Brigade. I don't know where that came from. The Red Hogs, Commanders, the Red Wolves, Defenders, and football team. Football team made the cut as the last list. I'm not sure, but maybe I'll have to go with Armada, being a Navy. I mean, that
there you go.
Strong.
That sounds like a good one. T Squared, who holds down the Fort Force on YouTube, hope this finds you well, says, hope that nourishment ain't getting blown in these wins, as he puts it. Love that. Gene Pledger is with us. He of Northern Alabama, and he's doing some good work helping others succeed in supply chain. Gene, hope this finds you well. Roger Carr's back with us from the Winter Wonderland of Greenville, South Carolina. Former home, I think, of the Greenville Growl. I'm not sure if they're still there. Greg, what were you going to say?
Well, I'm just curious. I heard they were getting, when you're in South Carolina, you hear a lot about the upstate. And I'm learning my South Carolina geography. And,
love it.
I'm curious how much actually got there because they were predicting as much as 10 or 12 inches in
What?
Greenville, South Carolina,
What?
the home
Goodness.
of BMW, by the way.
Well, Roger,
Spartanburg,
fill us in.
technically, I guess. Yeah.
Roger, let us know how much snow y'all got there. Natalie is tuned in back with in Charlotte via LinkedIn. Great to see you there. Peter says, good Monday morning. He's liking Greg's new do, Peter's saying.
Oh, wow.
I love it too,
Yeah,
Greg.
this is I'm going for the I'm contemplating growing it out, and man, every day is a challenge. Have you seen that? Have you seen Tommy Boy where he wants to rip his hair out?
Right.
Every day I wake up, my hair looks like that.
So it's like, how high does it get before it falls? Right?
I don't know. It hasn't fallen yet. I can't get it to fall. That's part of the problem.
Love it. Love it.
I'm thinking if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, I'm going to go with the Patrick Mahomes cut with the twists and everything.
Wow.
Because I think it'll stand up better than his.
Peter, thanks for noticing. And Greg, I look forward to getting a future rundown on the do. Mervin, great to see you here via LinkedIn. Jason says, who knew the MLK was a logistician and knew the road to success was integration? You know, that's a great comment. And I cannot remember the gentleman's name, but there was a logistician on the March on Washington, and we did a podcast about it, and we uncovered some really new aspects of one of the biggest historical events on record, certainly across the country. Yeah. Let's see here. Roger says, as a bivocational minister, my favorite quote from Martin Luther King Jr. was, quote, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Excellent.
My favorite of all of his quotes ever.
That's a good one. Yeah. And finally, and I love all the feedback we're getting. Y'all keep it coming. We've got a lot of stories to work through. Helmet, thank you so much. I've enjoyed your submissions. You've sent some articles and some takes across social. He asks a great question here, rhetorical question. What would be his dream for global supply chains? That's a great question. We'll probably try to sprinkle some of that answers and responses to that maybe throughout our conversation here today. Yeah. So thanks so much, Helmet. Okay. And stay tuned, because I think one of them, part of that response, is a vibrant diversitude across our global supply chains, creating opportunity for all. And we're going to touch on that through a wonderful article that Kelly Barner put together towards the end. One final, Kim Winter is tuned in. Greetings from the desert, guys. He is in Dubai. Kim, great to see you. Appreciate all the good work you're doing. Okay. So, folks, are we ready to get started? And we've really enjoyed everything but supply chain for the first almost half hour of the show. We got to get to work, right?
Yeah.
So, on that note, let's start with this first story here. So, the first story we are talking about here in the first month of the new year, CEOs continue to brace for more change in 2022. Shouldn't surprise anybody. As reported here by the Wall Street Journal, Omicron, inflation, and labor shortages. Oh my. Kevin, tell us more about this story here.
Well, actually, there was a survey done by the Conference Board. This is a private research group, and they said that more than half of U.S. CEOs expect 40%, at least 40% of their employees to work remotely 3 or more days per week after the pandemic goes away. So this is something that's going to stay. And this compared to like 28% of the CEOs before the pandemic. And about 82% of these CEOs, there are about 900 CEOs they talked to. This was globally. This wasn't like just in the United States or anything. They are seeing upward pricing pressures for raw materials and wages. And they expect this pressure to last until the middle of 2023 or beyond, right? And this is coupled with labor shortages. Companies like Honeywell International are reassessing prices of their goods more frequently, right? They don't just set a price once a year. They're looking at it like every month or two. and cloud service providers are planning new incentives for their employees to lure their employees back into the office. Nobody wants to go back into the office. And one of the ways they're trying to get people back in the office is with COVID-19 testing to allow larger gatherings of workers. I mean, what is safe today? What is safe post-pandemic? This is going to be an endemic thing, right? It's never going away.
Greg?
I think that's a great analysis. This is the new flu, common cold, whatever. This is something we'll live with for the rest of time, which is something that was not just foreshadowed, but scientifically discussed by Harvard doctors in the very early dates of the pandemic and subsequently ignored, which begot a lot of these issues, right?
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot of articles because I am absolutely baffled why people are not going back to work. I mean, other than the fact that they're constantly hearing about a new variant that could impact their health. There has to be other reasons, because there are plenty of people getting out and getting around, depending on where you are in the country, I guess, but or what country you're in. But people are, the root of all of these problems in terms of inflation and labor shortage, obviously, is people are continuing to live on the money that the governments gave them as subsidies. They paid off their debts. They packed away savings, which I didn't even think about people would do, with a genius on their part. And now they feel like they've got some buffer. They're kind of waiting for things to settle out. Remember, Scott, I said the word of the year would be stability. I think people are waiting for stability. They're waiting for stability in health and in determining, is this in fact an endemic? I think, Kevin, you and I are maybe a little bit ahead of the curve in believing that, and other people still think this can kill a lot of people, and they're afraid of that. And the of course, the rhetoric from politicians and the news is commonly that. So I don't know what else we would expect people to think. But people have savings, and they have this kind of nascent trepidation about getting back into the office. So they're just in a wait and see. They're in a wait and see mode around these things. And we're going to reintroduce a word that I think maybe only Kevin and I know. Scott, I don't remember exactly.
I don't know many words.
I don't know when this word was used. Stagflation.
Yeah.
So the economy will definitely stall. The Fed has already indicated that they will raise rates 3 times, probably 4, and now people are saying 5 times in 2022.
Wow.
Inflation is rampant, as evidenced by it growing yet again in the last month of the year. So we're going to see a stalling of the economy while prices rise. I think that, if not stability, but that concern will start to put people back to work. And maybe, I don't think high-minded like politicians and economists do, but maybe that's what they want, is to try and force people to get back to work. Yeah. I'm not sure, but I think that one of the things we have to do is we have to introduce some stability here. And remember, for all of you not in the States, this is an election year in the States. Stability is not usually what we get here. We get a lot of rhetoric and double talk and promises and threats and things like that. So I don't know exactly, but I can tell you this: it has changed the way people will work in offices for a significant number of years into the future. I don't know, 5, 10, maybe 10 years, maybe.
Well, I don't know if people will go back in the office. I was looking at another,
generally, Kevin.
Yeah, I was looking at another show, and it was saying that jobs like driving Uber and Lyft or doing the Instacart kind of job, people are deciding not to go back to their old jobs because they have no control of their safety. They see it as a danger to go into the old job. So like in the case of like Uber or Lyft, You're in your own vehicle. You have control of
Right.
what's in there. You set your own hours.
They're putting
And
windows,
yeah,
dividers,
yeah,
the front
right.
and the
And
back
they're
seats.
making they've already saved a lot of money, and they're making enough money
Right.
with this gig economy. So, why go into some environment you have no control over
Right.
in in today's world? Do something that you at least have some semblance of control.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some good news is, and we keep getting more, I think, from the medical community, at least what I'm tracking, is that more and more milder cases with Omicron and this last variant. And that is great news, right? That's great news. A couple quick comments. Ask and ye shall receive. Roger gives us a weather report. 4 inches up in the upstate of South Carolina, but the ice is worse, he says.
Ice is treacherous.
Sheldon is back with us here today. Welcome back, Sheldon Rose. Great to see you. Looking forward to your contributions. Eric's giving us stock tips. I love that in the comments. I agree with you. That Prologis, tell you, Prologis is doing some really cool things, Eric. And finally, T Squared. Stagflation was in the 70s and 80s. I remember it well as a 4-year-old. A lot of good stuff there. Okay. Hey, really quick. And we're talking about, as this leadoff article, we're talking about the story in the Wall Street Journal about some of these issues that CEOs are bracing for change and disruption and challenges, and you name it. But a quote in this article I found interesting. A beverage industry executive mentioned that, quote, there isn't enough agave in Mexico to make enough tequila, end quote.
No.
Now, I don't know about y'all, but I didn't know that officially tequila must come from agave plants grown in the Jalisco region of Mexico. Much like
tequila problem. Yeah.
I had no idea. Much like champagne's got to come from France. Vidalia onions have got to come from Georgia, right? And I also didn't know that there is, for years now, there's been a shortage of agave to meet the massive demand in recent years of tequila. And I was doing some reading about tequila. It really has reworked its image and its brand. So no wonder we're seeing all these tequila commercials all the time. It is a hot market. Greg, I know you've done some work, I believe, in the beverage industry. Do you like tequila?
Yeah. I do. And I mean, it's not just for shooting on spring break anymore. I mean, it never was. It never was, frankly, but in the States, we sort of went to the lowest common denominator as we often do. Right.
I always like the shoebox things, don't we?
Yeah, right.
True.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's, it is now a sipping drink, a mixing drink, obviously margaritas, but I mean, there are all kinds of things that you can do with it. And there are very, very good brands of tequila that are as good as any scotch or bourbon that you will ever drink, that you can literally drink. I mean, sip straight, drink it neat in a snifter. So it's not just for shot glasses.
That's right. The other thing is the process for not just growing, but then processing the starches that come out of the plant takes a long time. And so there's been a lot of fighting over the acreage in Jalisco, Mexico, as the different brands and companies want to secure their raw goods. It's really, really fascinating. Kevin, your quick response, and we're going to keep driving.
I can't wait to have another shot with Greg.
Yeah. Well, I think we're actually closer driving distance to one another now, Kevin.
Yes.
So
we have to make that happen.
Yeah.
So, of course, Kevin is talking about Tequila Sunrise with TECH. I'll let Greg do the wink, but lots of great content there. Fascinating interview that Greg did with Kevin, a 2-parter.
Yeah.
Y'all check that out. Maybe we can put the link in the comments there. A couple quick comments. Speaking of, Tempest says Uber drivers and Lyft drivers can make more than truck drivers right now. That's a great comment, Tempest. Great to have you back. Natalie says, my latest research project, motivating in a work from home environment. There's a struggle to maintain high team performance, think collaboration, learning, connection when everyone is working from home. That's a good point, Natalie. Okay.
Happy to tell you how I've been doing it for 21 years, Natalie, if you'd like to know.
That would be a master class, Greg.
I mean, I've been dealing with at least hybrid organizations since 2001, and there are some really, really productive ways to do it. Strangely, walking down the beach the other day, I was talking to a lady from, oh my gosh, one of the big universities in Canada,
Mm.
like their most prestigious, which the name just went through my head. Anyway, and she was doing a study on this, on work from home and the dynamics of, and Scott, you often mention water cooler conversations and the value, right, of having someone present and always on,
Yeah.
or always in your space to share and bounce ideas off of. I think that is something that is lost and so powerful. I mean,
Agreed.
and emotionally motivating when you get to experience that. So
Agreed.
one of the things you have to do is enable that to whatever extent you can.
All right. A lot of good stuff there. We're going to have a conversation dedicated on that. Maybe we can pick your brain, Greg, on leadership best practices when it comes from the
Leadership and
continued
work from home.
work from home environment. But really quick, Kevin, I want to keep driving here. We got so much to get to. This next article talking about all the change we're already have been speaking to for the first half of the show. There's been plenty of change across global supply chain, of course. And this really interesting article, I think, quick read from Forbes. Greg Price, a different Greg, points out a few supply chain and strategy trends, easy for you to say, to consider in the new year. Kevin, tell us about this.
Well, we're talking about people don't want to go back to the office, right? So there's a labor shortage, but you still need to get the work done. So how can companies deal with this? If you're not going to get the people in, that means more automation. So this is a huge trend, not just in supply chain, but across just about every industry, because increased automation will free up teams from the manual task. And that means you can use humans for what they're best for. So you can do the same amount of work with the same number of people, or lower number of people, but the people can focus on high level strategic work rather than those repetitive tasks, right? Make the robots do the repetitive task. And some of these, time consuming things like setting appointments and checking shipment status and generating invoices. There's a robot for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't go get a robot.
Well said.
But also data. One of the most important things we found over the past 2 years as the supply chain crumbled was the lack of access to data. And the fact that this data is just all over the floor. It's all over the place of where your products are, where your raw materials are. So it's really important now, as we go into 2022, to have more centralized data so that those humans can make better decisions. So because effective supply chains mean pairing data with human expertise. No robots allowed. You need the humans, right? So centralizing data enables the in-depth analysis and reporting that uncovers those inefficiencies and opportunities for improvement. And this also means that there's going to be a continual constraint on capacity across the supply chain. One thing I learned recently that I really didn't think about, but empty containers in the U.S. Like when the pandemic started, and the United States in general imports more than it exports. So all of these containers came to like the port of LA full, and they emptied the containers, but they couldn't get the empty containers out of the port back to the manufacturing ports. Okay. So the empty containers just stayed. And now there's that tens of thousands of empty containers in the ports here in the United States. And the manufacturers that need them, Greg, cover your ears, in China can't put more products because they have no empty containers, right? But there's another part of that. China imports most of their food, and food producing countries like the United States and Mexico and others have been shipping a lot of food to China, and they use reefers for that to keep the food fresh. Now, the same thing has happened on that side because they haven't been able to get the reefers out of China back to the food producing countries. So, because they can't make money shipping these things empty. So, even if the pandemic goes away tomorrow, there's still going to be a huge constraints on supply chain globally.
Yeah.
Now, and all of these things are forcing a lot of mergers and acquisition because the smaller companies just can't survive through this. So these trends are going to really be the headlines across 2022.
It's never an easy time to be CEO, but certainly this is a much more challenging time. Greg, your talk about your response when it comes to supply chain trends and strategies and some things Kevin's talking about.
Yeah, I think one of the things that to go back to the prior article also is we have to confess as leaders of companies that it will be largely remote, and that as Kevin has said before, and we've talked about frequently, this labor shortage will continue, and it will continue until people's bank accounts run out and they have to get back to work. And the labor shortage is the root of all problems in the supply chain. The fact that people aren't, coffee is going up, right? New agave plants are not being planted, et cetera, right? We're having predicted a produce shortage now, and so few companies, grow their own produce. Sorry, somebody's trying to get me to play tennis right now.
Priorities, Greg. Go get the tennis.
I'm shooing them away. It's also too windy. But I think those kind of things are the things that CEOs have to think about. That the world is changing, and that you can't think of the world in the way you want it or the way you wanted it to be in the past. You have to think about how people's psyches have been changed over the course of the last 2 years, and how that changes things. For instance, automation, to Kevin's point, we no longer need ever apologize for automating jobs, because the jobs that Kevin is talking about, virtually no one wants, right? It is now inevitable that certain jobs will be automated as people do whatever it is they do, right? Do side hustles, which become front hustles and things like that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Now my wife is responding to the tennis request. I got to get my other equipment down here.
Right.
Anyway, but you have to acknowledge that these things have changed, and probably changed for the foreseeable future, if not forever. Right. And some of those jobs that Kevin is talking to, they should have been automated long ago. It was only because the previous generations held those jobs and held on to them so tightly that we didn't automate them before, because it was unpopular. And now 3.6 billion extra persons, largely from the baby boomer generation and the Generation X, have 95%, by the way, of that 3.6 million people who retired early are from those two, are 55 and above. And those people held on to those jobs, and the next generations don't want them. So automate. Automate. And as Kevin said, position humans to do human things.
Well said. All right, really quick, I want to chime in. One of the things that y'all are both speaking to, and the article spoke to, was that final mile delivery, the autonomous final mile delivery market. So get this, folks. Get this. This might even surprise you, Greg, and Greg's never surprised. 900 million is what that market is estimated as in 2021. Some project that to grow to almost 5 billion by 2030. man, supply chain tech is
Yeah.
hot, and especially if you can play in that sandbox. All right, we got to keep driving. I'm going to share a couple comments. Greg and Kevin, to give you all a heads up, I'm going to skip over our third article and get to Kelly Barners for the sake of time here today.
Oh, yeah.
So just give you a heads up.
We got to do that.
Jason says, yep. I think companies, especially supply chain companies, will have to re-engineer office space and distribution with healthcare in the forefront. How to make an office feel like home. Jason, excellent comments there. Let's see here. Kim, this is point spot on here. Shout out to Supply Chain Now friend Jacinta Taliauli. I think I've got that right. I think, Kim, it's been a while. Kim and I interviewed along with Kelly Barner, Jacinta, and her family are in the Tonga region, which experienced that volcanic eruption. Now, here's some good news. Kelly reached out to her and has heard back. Her and her family are okay. That is wonderful, wonderful news. The world is a small place. Kim and Kelly, thanks so much for pulling that out. Let's see here. John's talking about the labor market. And John, great to have you back. He says, what happens when the ILWU contract expires on July 1st this year?
Yeah.
Man, the bottom's going to fall out further.
Another shock to prices, right?
That's right. That is right. And let's see, Eric, if you want automation, you're a freight forwarder, hit him up. Looks like he's got some best practices for reducing your workforce by about 50%. Very cool. Eric, check that out. Okay.
Always be closing.
Oh, always be closing. That's right. All right. So, folks, for the sake of time, we're going to go straight into our third article here today. Now, this is a special one, not only because we all love Kelly Barner, but love the topic, right? Especially, if there's ever a timely day. Oh, well, hang on a sec. Before I talk about this, one quick thought, folks. We were talking so much about automation a moment ago. Kevin and Greg, have y'all seen the movie Her that stars Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes.
Okay, Kevin, have you seen that yet?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I've checked that out.
Check that out. I tell you, it was that came out. I want to say, I was Googling it as y'all were sharing earlier. That came out back in 2013. Now it was timely then, but man, I stumbled back across that over the weekend. It really will make you think. And Greg is smiling because he knows what I'm talking about. It is really a movie ahead of its time. So check on that as we talk about AI and we talk about all this automation and then just how humanized the technology is going to be in the years ahead. That movie will become more and more relevant. So check that out. Her by Joaquin Phoenix. Kevin, especially next time you come on next month, we're going to have to talk for a few minutes around what that movie means and some of your thoughts around it.
All right.
Movie assignments. Yeah.
Movie assignments from the buzz.
I don't want to distract us too much, but as I think about people staying away in droves from work, I cannot help but be struck by the movie WALL-E. If you've ever seen the movie WALL-E, where people have become so complacent, they ride around in chairs that on a ship because the planet has been decimated, whatever, and they just can't do anything now because they have evolved to become basically, I don't remember what kind of morphic, but they can't really physically do anything. So I wonder what our future is if we don't do the productive things. So we have to figure out this balance, right?
Agreed.
How to keep people engaged.
All right, so folks, check out Her and WALL-E. We're going to have a movie review. Those are both are fascinating, and Kevin will have to circle out and get your thoughts too. And I love that you mentioned WALL-E. That's such a great movie, Greg. All right, but moving ahead. So again, talking about diversity in our global supply chains. I love the trends we're seeing. Our dear friend Kelly Barner, host, of course, of Dial P for Procurement here at Supply Chain Now. Well, she published this delightful article a few days ago, focused on the theme of building inclusive supply chains. And whoever asked that question, I think that might have been Helmut, asked a question about, what would Martin Luther King Jr.'s thoughts on global supply chain be? Man, talk about a fascinating conversation to have that one. But I believe that a big part of that is building inclusive communities. So, Greg, based on this article, it's a really had beyond Kelly's POV, it had folks from across industry weighing in. What were some of your key thoughts related to this or the bigger space of supplier diversity?
Well, I mean, this is really Kevin's specific areas of expertise with Source Connect and the work that he does. But I think the important thing is the initiative, right? It's you have to have more than just a goal. You have to have more than just metrics. You have to have a real active initiative to bring diverse suppliers, which is one of the things that she's talking about, into the fold. But moreover, as you talk about what MLK would think about supply chain, I think his concerns were much higher than supply chain. They were frankly higher than humanity, and driven by that higher power, that higher will, that higher understanding, frankly, than I think most of us have. His solution is the same throughout, right? It's do the right thing and do it for the right reasons. And I think that Kelly, in her way, has really kind of described that here, and given, by the way, also some both strategic and tactical guidance on how to get there. You need big solutions to bring people together because it requires everyone to contribute. And I think that's in its way, a really powerful statement, because, if you want to change things, everyone has to be involved. They have to be driving it. They have to be making the decisions. They have to be presenting the ideas. They have to be sharing and arguing the ideas for presenting the solution. And I think that, that's, I don't want to elevate it to MLK but it is the best way to look at it, is try to solve the big problems. And in trying to solve the big problems, you got to bring everybody into it.
Yep. Well said, Greg. Love that. Kevin, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to elevate it. Greg said he didn't want to elevate it. Well, I'm going to elevate it. Look, okay. I know we skipped the last article, but that last article was all about human nature, in that humans don't like change, right? But change is what drives growth. You have to be forced to change. And COVID-19 has changed the entire world. These discontinuities drove really a jolt to every industry. And this drives uncertainty. So everybody's not sure of what's going to happen. So they're thinking about, how do I respond to this change? I've been forced to change that I don't want to, but now I have to. So that's another jolt. And the third jolt is, how do I change my long-term strategy to reflect what I've learned so that I can survive in the next normal? Now, these uncertainties drive a growth mindset. And this is really a force for good, because growth sets the trajectory for future where millions more people can prosper and attain greater economic security, more material comfort, and better, higher well-being than before, because this has been forced on us. So growth is an enabler for our progress towards inclusion and sustainability. This helps create well-paid jobs, right? Uber drivers make more money than truck drivers. Truck driver was a good middle-class job, right? And this generates sufficient funding for things like climate transition. So, jolts are good, change is good, and we've been forced to make that change. Then this will be towards inclusion and sustainability. So diversity, those that are successful in our global supply chains are those organizations that embrace diversity and inclusion.
Well said. Well said. A couple of quick points, and folks, we dropped the link to Kelly's article in the comments. Hey, be a part of the conversation. Click that link, and it'll take you to the LinkedIn post, and we'd love to get your comments and your take on optimizing supply diversity. But hey, love the good news that was mentioned in Kelly's article about the state of supplier diversity, the data that report showed. There's tremendous momentum for greater and more successful supplier diversity. And Greg, kind of along the lines of what you are both speaking, important point that Kelly makes in the article, and I'll quote her, quote, if a supplier diversity program is to last, making a solid business case to the leadership team is essential, end quote. That really important. We need to say that louder for the folks in the back, because it's not just the right thing to do, but it's got to add to the bottom line for it to be sustainable, right?
That's
so
right.
Y'all check that out. Check out the link. Kelly, wonderful article. I love what you're doing with the, what's that LinkedIn program, Kevin and Greg, called?
Creators Program, right?
Yes, like the Creator Accelerance program. It's one of LinkedIn's first big pushes to kind of invest in content creators. And hey, they picked a great one. They got a great list of folks. Kelly is amongst that list, and love to see the good stuff come out of that good work. All right, a couple quick comments. We got some good ones here, Kevin and Greg. Simon says, say that a couple times fast, right?
Simon says.
Necessity is the mother of invention. Digital transformation entwined with sustainable supply chain will drive the change we need. The metaverse will soon be mainstream. Simon's got a little poetic.
I like Simon.
I do too.
What Simon says anytime.
Simon, great to have you back. Tempest agrees with what you are saying. She says, totally agree with the sentiment that people need to be forced to change. It's maybe one of the reasons why we don't like it as humans. I'm not sure who this is. Amanda, Clay, Catherine, maybe y'all can let me know. Says the root cause of the supply chain issues are really about addressing the internal and external supply chain as they are interconnected. Jason says, Greg, automation of jobs is a good idea, but I got a question for you. If we automate a simple forklift, will we need to train that operator to manage it from a remote computer? Redesign is always followed by re-education. Can we train that one person from operations to robotics? Is that on the job or go back to school? Lots of questions. You said one question, Jason. Lots of good questions. Greg, what's your quick response?
I think we're going to have fewer and fewer people who want that job, and it's going to be moot as to how we retrain those people, because ultimately that's certainly a technology that could be more than just a drone, not just remote controlled, but certainly automated. I mean, if you look at some of the automated robotic picking systems, what are they but tiny little forklifts or a substitute for a forklift? So I think what we do is we identify the gifts that people have, and we position them in the company based on what those gifts are. And and we talk about this all the time. Humans are best at making critical decisions rapidly with inaccurate or unavailable data. Technology cannot do that. It takes tons and tons of data to train AI. Humans can work, if you will, on the fly, and therefore those will be the jobs that humans will take. So we won't need to retrain anyone to do the jobs that are being, or maybe even transition them to some of the jobs that Jason contemplated there. They'll be totally different jobs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What better person to operate a fleet of remote forklifts than someone who drove forklifts?
Right.
They don't have to go back to school. That
That's
experience is critical.
Great point, Kevin and Greg. Kelly is with us in the cheap seats. Thank you for including my article today, Kelly. Absolutely. Big fans of what you do. Love your thought leadership. And let's make sure folks connect with Kelly Barner, and you can also check her out at Buyers Meeting Point, which is her company. We love our collaboration here via Dial P. Love what she's doing with Phil Addison over at Art of Procurement. Of course, we collaborate with both for our Supply Chain and Procurement Awards. Nominations close March 1st. Get them in. But make sure you connect with Kelly on LinkedIn and connect with her company. All right. I love Peter's comment here. Peter says, how about simply make decisions and stop tripping over yourself for perfection? Kim's a big fan of that as well. Kenton says, at the heart of most supply chains is a production operation. That is where raw materials and supplies flow into and finished goods flow from. Many of the biggest issues are created by constraints within the production process. That's right. Theory of constraints.
One word needs to be added there. At the heart of most manufacturing supply chains is a production operation. I mean, I think what we need to acknowledge as supply chain professionals is that there are foundationally 4 types of supply chains: manufacturing, distribution, retail, and consumer.
Now, the information and data supply chain.
That's right. That's a good one too.
Boom.
All right. Let's see here. Peter loved driving the forklift when I started working some 43 years ago. It was always a blast. I agree.
Is there anything that Peter hasn't done?
I don't know.
Retired, obviously.
Yeah.
When I was in the Air Force,
he is.
right. Well, he just joined as of last week. Yeah. That's right. As of last week, I believe Peter joined a friend's company, and gosh, he's going to bring so much wealth of information, knowledge to the table. But really quick, speaking of forklifts, when I was in the Air Force in Wichita, Kansas, Greg, your hometown, I got a part-time job, make some extra money because the enlisted pay wasn't the greatest. And the best thing of my part-time job it was at an aircraft components company on the other side of town. So I had to drive quite a bit from McConnell Air Force Base. The best part wasn't the pay. It wasn't. I got to do some cool things with Air Force parts, especially aircraft parts, especially landing gear parts. But I got to drive a forklift, and it was my favorite part of the whole thing. Okay,
landing gear parts. Wait, what was the name of that company?
I've Googled. That was back in 2001 or 2000. No, I was before 9/11 because that had to go away when 9/11 hit. So that was back in 2000, and I cannot. I've done searching. I've Googled. I've yet to find it. So maybe you can help me.
My best friend works at a company that does landing gear parts on the west side of Wichita.
Oh, we got to chat. We got to chat right after this.
How many more companies could there be?
That would be so cool. Yeah. All right. So folks, we're a couple minutes over. We've had a wide ranging, Kevin and Greg, I love getting y'all together. Talk about a brain trust and you two y'all getting together. Kevin, let's talk about Digital Transformers for a minute. Your hit podcast series, one of the many projects you've got cooking. What can folks expect as we get deeper into 2022?
So on Monday is our first release or published for Digital Transformers, and it's going to feature a show from the Middle East and North African Cloud Alliance. That's going to talk about technology convergence and cloud and robotics and all of that, how that works together to change industry. So stay tuned for that. And in February, we have a brand new sponsor, AT&T Business. And in February, we will be featuring AT&T Business on the cybersecurity. They have a special study, a cybersecurity report coming out from AT&T Business that's going to focus on healthcare. So and we have so much lined up for 2022. So make sure you follow Digital Transformers.
I love it. That's very exciting. Digital Transformers. We talked about Dial P for Procurement, Tech Talk, Digital Supply Chain Podcast. We got a new series launching just around the corner with Billy Ray Taylor. So you look for that, The Winning Link. And Greg, I know that your Hall of Fame career, you've been on a sabbatical a little bit with Tequila Sunrise, but we may just lure you out of that sabbatical. Who knows? Any thoughts there?
It could happen. Yeah. It's funny. I'm really enjoying sabbatical-ing, and I'm really just finally getting into the leisure part of it, if you can call it that.
Right.
Leisure. A life of leisure can be a lot of work, Scott.
Right. Well, you know what though, and you well deserved too, and it's been really neat to see you kind of this next phase. But you got so much, both of y'all. But Greg, speaking of entrepreneurs and growth and fundraising, just a whole entrepreneurial journey, you got so much to share. We got to get a crowbar and get it out of that brain. You got too much to give. So it's been really cool to see all those great discussions. Okay. Greg White and Kevin L. Jackson, one heck of a conversation here today. I got to share this from Jose. Jose, I think you're coming our way this week or next week, I believe. I think I owe you a message, but Jose does a great live stream focused on logistics and coffee. He says life for people in general would be the same unless we change. The world is going to change regardless if we do or not.
True.
That is a wonderful thought, Jose, and safe travels as you come our way in the coming days and weeks. Okay, final word, I promise. And then we're going to sign off and we'll go Kevin, Greg, and then I'll call it a day. Kevin, your final challenge for our team here.
Hey, listen to what we've said. And look at 2022 as not just a year of change, but a year of growth. That's what we're saying. Keep your head on the swivel and include diversity and inclusion as you do that.
Well said, Kevin. Greg?
Yeah, be more like Martin Luther King Jr., right? I mean, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Love that message, Greg.
I love that. Yes.
I went scrolling up back through the comments as we're about to sign off here, and I love this something that Kevin mentioned. Both of y'all were very eloquent on the front ends. We talked about Martin Luther King Jr. This was there's lots of T-shirt isms there, but here's one that I think Amanda caught. Kevin said, "Quote: Step up to the challenge, be consequential to the rest of the world." End quote.
I'm glad you called that out. Yeah, thanks, Amanda.
You bet. Great catch, Amanda and Kevin. Excellent challenge. That's everyone's challenge here, whether you're in supply chain or not. You got to be consequential, and you can't do that via lip service leadership. It's about taking action and being bold and brave enough to be the first one to take action, even when you don't like to do it. So, folks, wherever you are, we hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Hopefully, you pause for just a second and reflect on what Martin Luther King Jr.'s journey means to you and how it means to your day in and day out actions. I'd listen to Kevin and Greg here a lot. I love how they've baked in that into how they view the world and how they view their daily walk. So, folks, we hope to see you next time. Remember the Buzz every Monday at 12 noon. We're going to sign off here. Big thanks to Amanda and Catherine and Clay behind the scenes for making it happen. Scott Luton signing off on behalf of Kevin L. Jackson and Greg White, challenging you to do good, to give forward, and to be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
All right, bye.